Saturday, May 7th, Molly, Lizzy, and I all drove out to Blue Springs to the Habitat for Humanity Restore where we were expecting to volunteer. We'd been in contact all week with the volunteer coordinator who failed to tell us that we had to have some kind of orientation and we had to have an adult present in order to volunteer.
When we realized that we couldn't volunteer at that place, we asked the manager if he knew of any volunteer coordination organizations nearby that we could go to and maybe volunteer at. After being recommended to go to the Goodwill down the street, we got there and we asked around from employee to employee. We were told that they were sorry, but that they couldn't accommodate any volunteers at this time.
So after round 2 of being turned away, we went next door to a Red Racks, and we couldn't even find anyone to talk to. There was mountains of stuff in there, obviously needed to be done. There was tons of people, but apparently they needed no help.
Because of how hard it was to train us, or poor planning, we couldn't even find a place to work at.
This kind of got us thinking about just how serious the problem is, that even though we were trying to find place after place to volunteer and we were able-bodied, we couldn't even figure out how to help, and so just how pushed to the margins poor people must be, that help for them is rejected by people who, like, it's really not even their position to reject it.
Just like we were ready and willing to work but were turned away, the same thing happens to hundreds of homeless people every day throughout the country. In the United States alone, there are over 500,000 people that are homeless, 25% of these being children, according to the Huffington Post.
People don't just get poor because they're homeless. People get poor because they have no address and they have no previous jobs, so people won't hire them. In fact, the National Coalition for the Homeless cites not having a valid address as one of the leading causes of homelessness.
On top of that, 35% of people fall into the homelessness cycle. They lost a job, they can't afford their rent, so therefore they don't have an address, and then they can't get another job on top of that. Therefore, they remain homeless.
But job loss isn't the only cause of homelessness. Many people throughout the country who are already poor fall into homelessness because of circumstances that they just cannot change.
Just to illustrate that, 1 in 5 homeless people, according to the Huffington Post, suffer from a severe mental disorder.
For women, a leading cause of homelessness is domestic violence.
Going along with that, many people fall into homelessness because of family status changing, so maybe a divorce, or drug and alcohol abuse, or even just being in prison, and when you get out, there's really no way to get a job, so you fall back into that same cycle.
For homeless people, the odds are stacked against them. How can you get a job without an address or a phone? And how can you afford to have a phone or a home if you don't have a job?
The vicious cycle of poverty is hard enough to get out of, but it doesn't even begin to cover the actual facts of homelessness.
We're fortunate enough to not have to worry about where our next meal is coming from, or having to carry all of our belongings with us on the street, or even just having people look down on us literally every step of the way as we try to get back on our feet.
So as an effort to become more aware, we decided to sleep outside for a night to simulate homelessness. We are sleeping outside tonight in a tent in Lizzy's backyard.
We have our setup. We brought really just blankets, and we are leaving our phones inside for the night, and we are only allowed to go inside for
The bathroom.
that's it.
That's it.
What shocked me the most was how uncomfortable we were laying on freshly cut grass. Just imagine those people laying on concrete without any blankets or anything underneath them.
I think this experience really allowed us to just open our eyes and reflect on some of the difficulties that people commonly have to face within our world. And it was really interesting that we had to try so hard to become homeless and to be in a similar situation as so many people, just because of how truly privileged we are, whereas these people have nothing. And so it's just makes us that much more grateful.
And it really brought it home when we were woken up by some kid crying next door, but we realized that some homeless people will be on the street and literally be woken up by somebody coming in to attack them, or a siren wailing on the street. And it just showed us how lucky we are, and again, just how privileged we were that we had to actually try to make our lives difficult.
For the final part of our project, we decided to have a small clothing drive to help part of the 3,307 homeless people in the Kansas City area.
But clothes are really just one small part of what homeless people need. So if you're looking for a way to help homeless people in Kansas City or wherever you live, donate clothes, donate food, but really donate your time, because people out there really need it. And if we learned anything from this, it's honestly that it is our duty to help them. So we need to do what we can.